So we're creating our own trust, right? And the kind of trust that we're creating is going to be one that resembles trust that we're already familiar with, right? The public. So let's think about who the grantor is of this public trust, right? And the grantor for this public trust, let's just say that it's the US government, right? Now, the certificate of live birth serves as a bond, all right? A bond means that someone has loaned, something of value to another person to be able to benefit, right? Now, in this particular instance, the US government basically issues equity on behalf of the person that's listed on that bond or on that certificate of live birth. But it's not designed for you for what you think it is, right? Because it's designed for you to actually create an income producing asset from that equity, right? The only reason why that money exists in the economy is so that way there are no disturbances in the checks and balances, right? Like it's just like saying, well, the US government is just printing money randomly. Well, that might be true, but it's being printed for the lives of the people that are being created randomly as well, right? So here it is that you could kind of think of, the public trust as nothing more than a way of managing the Social Security benefits, which are designed to act as a stream of income for American citizens and residents to be able to enjoy as they get older in their life, right? So the US government gets to also act as the trustee, right? And beneficiaries, well, that would be the citizen or the residents. I know some people are not going to like this word, citizens or residents. And yeah, you have good reason not to, but the whole point of this conversation is to show you how to use the system that's been created and kind of repurpose it. All right. So let's talk about creating a private trust, right? Now, the reason why private trust is created is for the grantor. Grantor is acquiring those assets and creating some income producing assets. So the creator is you. Also, because you're controlling those assets, you get to be the manager to it if you want, right? But if you don't want it to, you could totally pass that responsibility on to a third party. That could be someone else that you trust. It could be, it could be a child. It can be a spouse. It could be a loved one. It could be a relative. It could also be a corporation, which is a different type of person, right? The kind of person that does not have any rights. Okay. So you're looking to protect your rights and keep those rights private. You want those rights private. What kind of things do you want held private? Well, your right to the assets that you acquire, right? That you will be passing on to your beneficiary. And who's your beneficiary? Your family. So let's talk about getting these assets to your family without the US government getting involved. Okay. So for this public trust, let's just go back here for a second. This public trust has a social security number. And that social security number is designed to be used as a form of identification for anything related to government benefits. That means women's infants and children. That means food stamps. That means Section 8. That means financial aid, right? But the social security number, most of us, we don't know how to properly use it or protect it. And so it becomes a victim of identity theft. It becomes a victim of identity fraud. It becomes the victim of poor consumer responsibilities. All these things affecting the social security number And when a person dies and they haven't been managing their debts, well, at the end of the day, anyone who has the last four of your social security, well, what can they do? They can file a claim, against that social security number, and from that 11 million to 22 million estate tax allowance, that's where that money goes. All right. That's where those corporations, those third parties are getting your assets in your estate. That's where they're getting it at. They're getting it at your social security number, because most of us don't know about this. All right. Most of us don't know that you can lock up your social security number to protect yourself from identity theft, identity fraud, and create another entity with another 9-digit number to deal with the public, so that way you don't have to put yourself or your family as subject to that possible violation. Is this making sense so far to everybody? Let me check real quick. All right. Come on, guys. I need some feedback. I need to know that I'm doing this correctly, and if you're not gonna unmute yourself and interact with me, at least help hook a brother up by responding in the chat. I'm not, come on. Trying to make sure that I give you value, all right? That I'm not wasting your time, that I'm answering the things that you want to know about trust, right? So let's talk about this private trust, because again, for the things that you didn't know you were susceptible to, right? Let me just go ahead and put these things over here. The things that you didn't know, credit, right? Well, before that, we got to talk about ID theft, fraud. We want to protect that. We want to talk about unfrozen credit score, credit reporting accounts, right? Let's also talk about testamentary testamentary, which is basically a dead trust. All right, a trust that gets created after the individual who is alive, right, then gets issued a certificate of death, right, and then with that certificate of death, anyone who wants to, can, or who feel that they are entitled, they can go to a state or a county court and request administration over your estate. And because you didn't have any kind of protections in place, now you just let somebody else, along with the government, take your assets. And I mean that in every harsh sense of the word. All right, like if your mind went someplace to like my mind went with American Me, I don't want anybody taking my assets. Nobody's taking my assets. Nobody's taking my assets. All right, but the whole point of this is to show you how to protect your assets from being taken. All right. So a trust, let's talk about this. It gets its own EIN, its own 9-digit social security number, 9-digit social security like number. And what can you do with that? Well, bank account, you can apply for insurances. You can also get investment accounts. Is any of are any of these things kind of resonating with anybody? Just curious. You guys like this stuff? All right. So you can get an EIN number for your trust, which would then allow you to go to the credit reporting agencies, put a credit freeze on your account to protect your social security number from identity theft, identity fraud, and from unlawful third parties, you know, running soft credit inquiries that hurt your credit worthiness, that screw you over in the long run when you want to go apply for loans or go, apply for credit to help you get the houses or the apartments or the things that you want to pass on to your children, so that way they don't have to work as hard as you did for the money. Start letting the money work for them. All right. So these are some of the things that you could do with the trust. You could open a bank account. You could apply for insurance. You could also get some investment accounts. What else could you do? You could avoid probate court. I like this one in particular, right? Because anytime something goes to probate court, that means that, well, your information just became public. Anybody want to, anybody interested in that? Anybody really want their assets being subject to the public's knowledge?
No, it's not a good look.
Definitely not a good look, right? Definitely not a good look. So we're keeping our assets out of the hands of those that we don't want it to go to, right? And we've created a little bit of flexibility for ourselves. What else can a trust do? Well, a trust can also, let's talk about some of these extra features and benefits of a trust, right? It can, because it is not required, register with state. That also means we just added extra layers of privacy. Stays private, right? Not only that, but now trust can own or hold in trust. Anybody want to take a stab at this? No? Okay. Trust can own or hold the business in trust, right? It's that time of the year where a lot of people are renewing and their annual business filings, right? And they're like, well, I heard that my trust can own my business, and like my trust owning my business gives me some tax advantages. Oh, let me go ahead and put that in there. Can't forget about that. Nobody wants to pay the tax, man, right? Um, you could basically wash out your taxes by having a trust that owns a business that pays employees. Okay. So, like, if your trust owns your business, then all the income goes to the trust, which means the business has no profit to report, right? And as we all know, a business doesn't get taxed on anything else but the profit that it has acquired, right? The money that it's built up. So if the business it doesn't have any profit, and the trust is also managing the finances of the business and paying the employees, then the trust just passed the actual business related taxes onto the employee. But now the only person that's getting taxed, or the only entity or individual that's getting taxed, is the individual employee. So if you've got a business, right, your business has employees, or rather payroll. Let me just put that in brackets. Payroll is one of the number one expenses on all businesses list. All right. So now, how much does the employee need in order to live annually? I'm asking this question, and I pose this question to you guys because I want you to start thinking about things from a different perspective. I want you to start thinking about how much you actually need in order to afford your lifestyle. Now, for some of you, it might be less than 50,000. In fact, for a lot of us, under 50,000. Yeah, and I know even with the cost of living, $50,000 still goes a very long way. All right. So let's think about it like this. You've got a business, the business generated $75,000, right? The business has expenses of about 5,000. right? And the employee has expenses of about 50. So that means that if we're thinking about what I said before, you put the entire 75,000 into the trust. How much how much does the trust pay in taxes? Who say, right? Trust is just holding on to the money. It's managing the money for the business and for the employees. All right. Now, business only has $5,000 in annual expenses. So at the end of the year, the business has no more money and therefore has nothing to be taxed and therefore can't be taxed. But the business had payroll expenses of about 50,000, which it passed on to its employee. The employee's living expenses annually amount to $50,000. How much is the employee going to get taxed? Well, you subtract the benefits, such as insurance, such as retirement, and now only thing that's left over is mortgage, travel, food, entertainment, miscellaneous. Does this sound like to anybody someone's recent tax filing? Okay, so like if this sounds like stuff that you're putting onto your taxes, and we just basically itemized every single exemption and every single deduction, how much are you paying in taxes at the end of the year? How much did you just pass on to your family? You've still got $20,000 held in a trust. If you want to go on a vacation, if some, if your business didn't go through the entire 5 grand that it had left over, or that, didn't go through the $5,000 annual budget that it actually has, minus the $50,000 budget for payroll expenses, right? Well, whatever's left over, give that as a bonus or a gift to your employee or to the owner of the business. And what else did we just do? We just further eliminated some tax liability. I don't know about you guys, but I like doing what I do. All right. Because I get to show people how to protect their assets and really just how to keep more money out of the government's hands. And I'm all for that because it needs to go back into the hands of the people that look like me. Right. I'm not going to get on my MAGA stuff. This is my land. They came to my land. This is my land. It's my land. They took your jobs. All right, like that's maybe a little too funny. I'm sorry. I'm being a little. All right, so let me see. Let me take a look at the chat. Look at maybe there's some comments in there. All right, and comments or questions. So what we got here? It's amazing. Hey, I appreciate it. I'm glad that you're enjoying this. All right. Guys, don't be afraid to put your questions into the chat if you have any. Please, just we're basically at the end of this. If I don't have any questions, it's not, you don't want to hear me freestyle. All right. And like by freestyle, I mean like trust freestyle. I'll try to go off the top of the head for every single possible scenario. But the whole point of you showing up today, you know, via the invitation that you were sent by someone who wants to help you protect your family, is to give you a GPS towards the kind of freedom that you want and that you want your family to enjoy. All right. So let's look at that. I was thinking that this started sounding like tax return process. It does seem a lot like the tax return process. And in many ways, like, how else does the government get us if not on increasing taxes so that way they can increase their government spending, right? And then what do they do with the money that they're getting or that they're collecting on taxes? Well, for county, yeah, maybe some of that money goes to, the building of a bridge or, like a building of a school or repairing roads and all the stuff that we learned on the Monopoly board. But the Monopoly board it's been designed against us. And for the most part, a lot of us never get to go. We never get to collect our $200. A lot of us end up going straight to jail or becoming a ward of the state. So the whole point of this is to prevent, give our community options that don't require us going to jail to discover knowledge of self, when if somebody would have just been like, yo, this is what you need, this is the platform, this is the outline for what's going to give your family the kind of stability that you wanted to have, this is what you need to be looking at. All right. So, oh, okay, we got some compliments in the chat. Much gratitude for the invite to this live. Brother Marco, thank you also for being on. Thanks for the knowledge, Dr. Prince. Hey, I'm happy to share it. When doing a private irrevocable trust, who do we file them with to get the EIN number? So this is a pretty good question, right? Now, just so everyone who may not be in the know is aware, an irrevocable trust is one of the two flavors of trust, right? So you have the revocable trust and then you have the irrevocable trust. The irrevocable trust means that it cannot be changed. Now, in my experience, and I'm only just sharing my experience, an irrevocable trust works well for those who exceed the 11 to 22 million allowed tax allowance. Why do I say that? Because, well, when you got millions of dollars, you don't really need many of the other things that most people need when they're moving from their day through their day to day. You don't need insurance. You don't need a retirement plan. You're self-insured. You're self-retired. You got, and if you got your assets or your investments situated in a way where your money is constantly working for you, then you won't ever be able to exhaust those funds. So an irrevocable trust may work out well for a person who is financially well off. But if you're not financially well off, a revocable trust may be more the flavor for you. Okay. Now, because I don't know what your situation is, I'm going to say that it's a good idea to start as a revocable trust. And then, if ever anything should happen, trust me, your trust will become irrevocable automatically upon your death. So that's one of the benefits also of a revocable trust, is that at the time of the death of the creator slash grantor of the trust, that trust becomes irrevocable. And part of the reason why it becomes irrevocable and unf-wittable is because, well, in your trust document creation, you went to one of the state's agents and you said, I need you, agent of the state, to witness my final will, last testament, and in the form of a notarization stamp, right? So now, because it's been notarized, what can you do with the notarized document? You can present it in a court of law. And because it can be presented in a court of law and it is admissible as a form of evidence, no one's going to be able to challenge that. So you just created your own rule book on how your assets should be passed on to your loved ones. Going back to your question, when doing a private irrevocable trust, who do we file them with to get the EIN number? Well, you don't file the trust with anyone. You do apply for the EIN number, though, from the Internal Revenue Services website, irs.gov. When you get there, go to the search bar and put in apply for EIN online and read the prompts. Take your time. Maybe I'm giving too much of the sauce out here, and maybe somebody's probably saying, damn, he's giving this away for free. And you're right. I am giving this away for free because the only thing that it cost me was time spent on reading through the IRS's website, reading through the state, and trust me, there are different states have different rules in regards to the trust. I'm more versed well in New York and in Florida, in Georgia, in Colorado, California. I got some people overseas too, right? But that's neither here nor there. Where do you get the EIN number? You get it from the IRS's website. And if you do it yourself, it's free. You'll get an EIN number for free, right? But if you go to an estate planning attorney, if you go to an estate planner, Well, the estate planner usually charges half of what an attorney would charge. And as non-attorney, non-lawyer, just as an estate planner, a financial planner, someone who's, in the business, making sure that our people have the kind of protection that they're looking for. Um, I'm giving you this information and I want you to have it because I want you to be able to protect your family. All right. So go to the IRS's website after you've drafted your documents. And where do you get the documents for your trust? You can go to Office Depot, you can go to Office Max, and from there you can get a living will or a living trust packet of documents, and they got it in there for like less than $10. So geez, how much does it really cost you to put your trust into effect? $10 spent at Office Max, Office Depot, you know, 30 to 45 minutes on the IRS's website, reading the information, filing the application appropriately. Then after you've got it, $5 to $10 for a notarization. What is that? We're at like $20, right? $20 to do something that an estate attorney charges over $1,500 for on the low end. Something that I charge on the low end, $750 for people who aren't my partners. Like my business partners, they get this stuff for free. I'm making sure that my partners are taken care of, right? That my partners' assets are going to pass on to the people that they wanted to. All right, let me move on. And if there's still any more questions about filing and where to get that type of documentation, put it in the chat. Right, we got about 17 more minutes before I call this call a close. But going back to the chat comments, clearing up a lot about private and public, and you go into private trusts owning a public trust. Well, remember that when I said the the trust is not required to register with the state, right? Like if you remember that I said that, understand that because there is no registration with the state, your trust is already private on a state level. Your trust is also private on a federal level because the only people who know about the trust or about any 9-digit number for the trust is the people who gave you the 9-digit number, AKA the Internal Revenue Service. They're the only other people who know. Who else is going to know about your trust? Well, the banking institution that you go to open up your bank account, whether that's for a single member trust or a joint trust for those that may be married or may have a domestic partnership. And the domestic partnership for those that don't want to get married but still want to, be wild and crazy kids but keep it honest. The domestic trust may be what you may want to reevaluate and look into. All right. So for more asset protection and privacy, just bear in mind that you're already private once you've created the trust. Because again, notarization, it never goes through probate. It never goes to court. And the way to keep it out of going to court is to make sure that you never transfer an asset that is under a lawsuit or pending litigation. You don't transfer any of those assets into the trust because the federal government can subpoena your trust to review any property that was what they consider to be fraudulently transferred into the trust because you were trying to evade some legal action. All right. And when you guys see the YouTube video on this, and I'll make sure that Marco's got this video so that way he can share it with the people who he invited today. Thank you again, brother Marco. Um, guys, just be mindful about what you're doing and take your time. There's a lot of bad actors out there who sell you information and they overcharge you. All right. So let's keep going through the chat. Let's see what else we got in here. Some more encouragement. Much gratitude, brother. Thank you. Much appreciate you being here. Unf-wittable. Gosh darn right. Our land, right? Our assets, our trust, right? Our protection. That's what we're creating. All right. Question: what if we wanted guidance from someone like you to help us with this process? Well, someone like myself, um, as you've all been invited to this, you clearly you see that I want the public, I want our community, I want our people to have access to this information. So I'm making it as affordable as possible. One, if you're taking notes, and I hope that many of you are, right? There's a lot of value already in the conversation. This, this is a high value call, right? Um, but for those of you who may not feel confident enough to move forward on creating your own trust on your own, um, maybe you need a little of assistance on, kind of guiding you. I have two options for you, and I'll make those offers for you at the end. So please don't let me forget. I just want to save that for the end. Well, you know what? Little nibble, little something to snack on. Here's what I'll do. For those that may be interested in some guidance on navigating this process either on your own, well, $750 to help you plan out the estate. Along with that 750 comes a 6-month retainer. I will, if you want to take your trust documents to an attorney to have them review everything that I've done, because I got nothing to hide. My hands are clean, my heart is also clean, and I got nothing but full faith and credit to show you that I'm gonna be here to work with you every step of the way to make this work. All right. Um, yeah, you get that for a 6-month retainer. And at the end of the year or the end of 365 days, I call you up. Hey, any changes to your documents, any changes to your estate? Do we have to add any people? Do we have to remove any people? Move, or are you still in the same location? You grow any more assets? Did your investment income grow? Do you want to create any more protection? Do you need any more different banking accounts? What do we got to do? Right. So it's just, it can be overwhelming on your own, but the other option, the other offer that I have is that for those that want to learn how to do this themselves, for those that want to maybe also create another form of income for yourself, for those that decide to partner with me, guys and gals, what I will do is, as long as you meet the cost of the background check and the monthly subscription, the first month's subscription, basically, for those that join me on my financial planning side of the house, I will teach you how to create your own estate. Not only will I teach you, but I will also give you access to the same software I use to help you write your own estate planning documents. And it's the software that I use actually has over 1,500 different templates, which you can use for almost any home or business related scenario. Maybe for some of you guys that works out for you, maybe it doesn't, but the offer's on the table. All right. Um, and that offer is on the table until the end of the week.